I think we are also a generation that lacks faith. Like, no one believes really in anything. And when there's no hope that things will get better, there's no reason to stay here.
I'm honored and privileged to have one of our youngest guests that we've ever had. And it's someone with a perspective far beyond your years. So don't let the age fool you, because she speaks openly about growth, faith, and mental health. She's also the author of Sanity in the Storm and the host of Peace in the Storm podcast. Please welcome creator, author, and podcaster Andelina Storm to the show.
I do think TikTok and scrolling on Instagram Reels, it can be very harmful to the brain and to people because you're comparing your lowlights to someone's highlights. Like, you don't know if they were struggling before they took that or what their life really looks like. So instead, you're just constantly comparing yourself to someone's highlight. People need help. I need help. Everyone needs help. A lot of the reason people struggle is because they don't.
To another episode of the Real Mentors podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sean Martin, and Real stands for real life examples altering lives. And today in studio, I'm honored and privileged to have one of our youngest guests that we've ever had. And it's someone with a perspective far beyond your years. So don't let the age fool you, because she speaks openly about growth, faith, and mental health. She's also the author of Sanity in the Storm and the host of Peace in the Storm podcast. Please welcome creator, author, and podcaster Andelina Storm to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I just want to say thank you for coming out. You and Bobby, your dad, traveled all the way from Michigan on an ice rink of an airport runway last night to get over here. So we're glad you made it here safe and sound, and you're here in the South Bronx. Is this your first time being in New York City?
It's my second time, but I was really young last time I was here. So basically a whole new perspective of New York.
And I'm guessing this is the first time both of you in the South Bronx?
Yes.
Nice. We always like to give our guests that added little notch in their belt too, especially from when they're out of town, and kind of change their perspective on the Bronx and everything that goes on. So speaking of changing perspectives, you are a Gen Zer. You are a very young, well-spoken lady who made quite an impression on me at a mastermind hosted by our friend Ken Jocelyn down in Atlanta. And you took the stage and you told us about this amazing book you were in the process of writing. It wasn't even complete yet, but we were all so blown away that we all ordered and pre-ordered our copies there on the spot to help push the process along. Tell us a little bit about Sanity in the Storm and how you got to the place where someone like you felt called to write a book.
So Sanity in the Storm is basically a guide to deal with your mental struggles, your trials and tribulations. I have had OCD and anxiety since I was a kid. And as I've grown up, those kind of expand. Like, if you have like one thing, like, you kind of have another. It's like an autoimmune disease. It's like, if you have one, you probably have five. So that was kind of my experience with mental health. And I've always loved writing. I was like a Dear Diary kind of girl. And then one day it turned into Dear God instead of Dear Diary, which I was very grateful for. And I got taught about like listening to your calling, and I lied to myself and thought it was dentistry because my dad's a dentist. So I really wanted to be just like him, and I pushed it aside. But then sophomore year of college, I had a friend die by suicide, and I was in a similar place myself. So I was really processing with God, like, what this looked like, what this meant, what should I do? Because if I feel this way and I know I'm not going to make that decision, I felt like it was my job to make sure no one else made that decision too. God was like, well, you always liked writing, so sit down and start writing. My dad was like, I think you should write a book, not even knowing the conversation I had had with God. And I was like, okay, weird, like, interesting. And one day I should have been studying for a chemistry exam, and instead I sat down and started writing Sanity in the Storm. And it was the only stable thing in my life at the time. Like, I didn't have motivation to get out of bed. I didn't have motivation to work out or go to class. Like, I had to force myself to do those things. But every night, God put it on my heart to look forward to sitting down and writing, which I really appreciated. And I came to really love vulnerability. And I know you are also a vulnerable person. You talk about your own journeys throughout your podcast and your book that you just came out with and stuff. And as a psych student at Michigan State, because I switched my major after I started writing, I realized that vulnerability is so much more than just something that we're scared of. It lowers cortisol, which is our like anxiety like hormone. And you probably had a very similar experience to this, and you probably don't even know you did, but actually being vulnerable send your brain into a growth mindset environment. So the minute you like let your brain know that it's okay that things might not work out, it immediately starts looking for ways to like make everything work out, or like to look at different motives or angles to go into. So by being vulnerable in my book, which is my favorite part about it, I was able to find coping mechanisms through faith, through psychology, through like different therapy outlooks I looked through, and research all around. So it's like the perfect little toolkit.
That's pretty awesome. There's a lot there that I want to touch on. But the first being called. You said that you weren't looking forward to anything. You were at a place where you were even contemplating suicide. You had a friend in your sophomore year that committed suicide. You lost a friend to that. It was close to home. And you didn't want to get out of bed. But for some reason, you were looking forward to writing this manual, this guide, because essentially it's your story, but inadvertently it's a guide for others who may be suffering the same situation. Now, what's telling to me is I'm 47 now, so I'm very detached from the thinking. And oftentimes, it can be misconstrued as weakness. We have a weak generation. We have a generation that's soft. They've never been tried. Now, why do you think that is, that there's so much more depression in your generation? And again, it seems to be like maybe it's self-centered, and maybe people in my generation just think we're better. I think that's a big part of it. But there's also some proof that points to levels of suicide, levels of depression being at all-time highs. Yes. Particularly amongst young people.
Yes.
Why is that? Because you're living proof.
Yes. So I have a few different reasons. The first one is I think we're getting better, but I think we are also a generation that lacks faith. And for me, that's Christian faith. I think Jesus is my Lord and Savior. I know that. But there's no faith anywhere. Like, no one believes really in anything. And when there's no hope that things will get better, that if you live a certain way, if you believe in a certain thing, then there's a reward after you die, there's no reason to stay here. Because if people believe that this is all there is, that's pretty depressing. And I think that sends people into a spiral, and our brain is a very mean, tricky place. And I think that is definitely one thing. I think right now, like, the world as a whole just like lost faith in anything. Another thing is I believe that society and social media, like, obviously I'm not trying to be hypocritical because I have social media.
No, we all do. We're doing it right now.
Right. But also I do think like TikTok and scrolling on Instagram Reels, it can be very harmful to the brain and to people, because you're comparing your lowlights to someone's highlights. You're looking at an Instagram post of someone in Italy studying abroad, and you're like, wow, like, they have it all together.
Sucks.
Like,
so
yeah,
bad,
they have it all together. Like, I'm sitting in class in Michigan. Like, it's cold outside. Like, and you look at someone else's highlight, like, you don't know, like, how maybe like insecure they were when they put that outfit on before they took that picture. Or you don't know
how many pictures they took to get to the one
how many
saw.
Exactly. Like, my camera roll's full of pictures. Like, you guys are only seeing the highlights on Instagram. But that's the thing, is it's highlight reels. Like, you don't know if like they were struggling before they took that, or what their life really looks like. So instead, you're just constantly comparing yourself to someone's highlight while you're laying in bed at night having the lowest moment. And I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think social media, for the most part, is a lie, which is why I really appreciate people that like are vulnerable and like tell the truth and like tell real stories, because human beings are made for a connection. And going off of that is my next point. Our brains, like, whether you're like faithful or not, are made for community and are made to feel like secure and to communicate. Like, we have emotions and we need to be able to like share them with someone, or else we literally just send ourselves into a spiral and all of our thoughts get internalized, and then our nervous system isn't working properly, and then we develop all these like mental like struggles because we're not saying what we need to. But that's exactly what we're taught to do. We're taught, especially like for men, that vulnerability is a weakness, that men shouldn't cry, men shouldn't go out of their way to tell anyone they're struggling. And it's like a pretty similar thing with like girls nowadays too. Like now it's like no one can be upset. And it's like if people like are crying, it's like they're being dramatic or like they're dramatizing things or they're doing it for attention. Like now when like people post videos crying, like no one even believes that they're actually upset. They're like, oh, they're doing this for attention or they just want us to feel sorry for them and stuff. So I think we're encouraged not to be vulnerable. I think there's a lack of faith and hope that things do get better. We have social media. We also had COVID a few years ago, which like isolation, again, we're made for community. So when we have isolation, obviously things creep in and sink in and our brains are like not always the nicest to us. And they're going to tell us things that aren't very helpful for survival or thinking things do get better. And also I think a lot of it is like diet. I think there's a lot of processed things and like certain foods that mess with hormones. And when hormones get messed up, then like...
It's almost like a perfect storm.
It's
like all these things just coming to a head. And I think social media was really it was all going on, right? We made this big shift toward processed foods in the last, 5-6 decades in this country. And then you see, income disparity is always getting worse, right? The haves and the have-nots are always getting further apart, which is the usual indicator toward a failing nation, right? We're not failing now, but we have, all numbers say we've peaked and we're on our way down. And maybe this is all part of that. I don't know. But I know that we can't control what we can't control. And you were mindful enough, and I know you have a great support system, at least in your dad, and I'm sure the rest of your family as well. I want to get personal because you said vulnerability is the key. Mm-hmm. And with the changing world and technology seeping into every corner of our life, particularly with artificial intelligence, there is this belief that people are going to get left behind. But I'm a glass half full guy. You seem to be a glass half full young lady. And we're going to just say authenticity now is going to make a full circle comeback. Like that's what people are missing. So I'm glad that you hit that on the head because there's a saying, which is the person with no secrets is the freest person in the room. And that is something that I've chosen to live by. It will rub the wrong people the wrong way and the right people will be attracted to you. So I say all that to say, I want to talk about you getting vulnerable, you being in that low place, because there's so many of your peers that are in that same place. They don't have a reason for living. Maybe they're not inclined or their gift is not to write a book. That's very, very, I guess, high up because you are somebody that I can see doing great things in this world. You have a great blueprint to follow and a great support system. But for someone who doesn't have that, what are some of the things that you did in addition to this big gesture of writing a book? Because I know there were wins that you had to stack every day to get out of that place. What could you tell some of your younger peers who are going through this right now and they feel hopeless themselves?
Yeah, so honestly, a big thing for me is that whatever a win is for you is a big enough win. There's no scale of what is like a win versus like what is a loss. For some days for me, it's just getting out of bed. That is a win. You cannot like judge yourself or hold yourself to the same standards that work for someone else. Kind of going back to the whole comparison thing we were just talking about with social media. What works for me is not going to work for you, and a win for you is not necessarily a win for me. Maybe that's starting to like work out or go to the gym because movement is like so important for mental health and for struggling. Just going on a walk. Like you don't have to do anything crazy.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Go on a walk. Maybe do some like yoga. Like, I mean, that was never like my thing. I get like too antsy, but like some people love yoga. Like that wouldn't be a win for me. That'd be a loss. But for some people that is a win. Maybe it's going to class because I think people underestimate, especially like parents or professors, like underestimate how hard it is for kids struggling to show up to lecture. Maybe it's not necessarily showing up to lecture, but maybe it's like taking notes while you're at lecture because it's so easy to just deassociate and be like, okay, like, well, I got here. Maybe it's finding new community. Maybe it's volunteering. A really rewarding thing for me is just finding places in the community where I can give back because giving to other people makes me realize that there's so much humanity in this world and I'm not alone.
Right.
Like, people need help. I need help. Everyone needs help. We all just need to help each other. And when you help other people, you automatically kind of make yourself feel a little bit more human because you're like, oh, there is good things about me. Like, I care about these people. Like, I am feeling love. Like, I am feeling like these emotions that I thought I didn't feel at all. Because a lot of the reason people struggle is because they don't feel anything. Right. And it's like, this is all just like empty. This is like nothing. So I would say that maybe the book isn't for you. Maybe a podcast isn't for you, but maybe the field you're studying is, maybe working out is, maybe just getting out of bed. And don't let someone else's win make you feel less proud of your own, because everyone's win is going to look different for them.
Yeah, and in a less eloquent way, I always say, in the immortal words of Jay-Z, excuse my French, but what you eat don't make me shit. And I think that the problem is we're looking at people's highlights versus what we're comparing or comparatively looking at as our lowlights. And we've got this disconnect. So I mentioned the haves and the have-nots in society in terms of earnings. That is actually exactly what we're talking about in terms of the social media presence. It's the haves and have-nots. You have this amazing life. I have not. So there's people that post once a month because they feel like there's nothing worthy of posting. And then you have people that are posting 5 and 6 times a day, like myself, because it's part of the brand building. But it creates an image to this person that I have this extraordinary life without struggle or challenge. It's just that I celebrate those struggles. Now, if you can't be in a place, that's an advanced place to be, where you can celebrate a struggle or welcome a challenge because you know it's going to build you. And we're talking about keeping it simple. And I love the fact that you said just getting out of bed is a win. Because what I learned, have you been to Tony Robbins' event yet or no? All right, so I'm sure it'll be on the radar for you in the near future. You've been to, masterminds already. But one of the things they taught at Date with Destiny was making wins as small as possible. So kudos to you for having the recognition of this at such a young age, because I think that's what social media has done. It has put the wins, the big wins, front and center. And it makes people just getting started out think that that shit is possible to them. Your dad mentioned Grant Cardone, who is the real estate guy, guru, hate him or love him online, right? Grant Cardone comes off as this larger than life, kind of brash personality, making tons of money. So people see that, but people don't see, if you rewind 15 years where he starts out at these little seminars. And again, I only use him. You could do the same with Joe Rogan. I use his podcast where it's a phone at the end of the table. You can see most of the 6-foot plastic table. But they just got started, and just getting started is a win. So just getting out of bed, if you've been incapable of doing that for a week, is a win. Going for a walk, I think, in nature is a huge win for anyone. But let's stay on the subject of depression, because it's something that I feel you're uniquely qualified to inspire people around. What did that look like for you? What did a day steeped in depression and helplessness look like for you? And if it's too uncomfortable to rehash, but something tells me you've overcome this and you wouldn't let it drag you back anymore.
No, and honestly, I think a really important thing to say too is that it hasn't gone away for me. Like, I still deal with it daily. It's a daily struggle. I also have, or my dad doesn't like to say that I have, because then it doesn't sound like I can overcome it. So I struggle with PMDD, which is like premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which means I get really suicidal right before I menstruate, which is something that's obviously special in women. So every month there's
Is that why my wife's acting crazy 3 weeks in? We're going to edit this now. No, it's crazy. I say that with all due love and respect. It's true. When they're a week out, the behavior changes. Yes. It shifts. But for you, it's deeper.
Yes. There's PMSing, which people...
Normal PMS. That's this conversation went in a direction I wasn't expecting.
But PMDD, it affects 1 in 20 women. So it's actually more common, but it's extremely under-researched because it was only put in the DSM in 2013. So it's a very new study. I found out I have it a little bit ago, but basically I can't really help it. My hormones just don't not being perfectly balanced. And as a woman, that like changes every week. So every month I get extremely depressed and down in the dumps, and I cry at the drop of the dime, and I feel crazy. But that's something that I know happens, and I have to just continuously like kind of pull myself out of that like ditch, get myself out of that storm monthly. So depression for me definitely looks like hysterical crying. Like, I mean, you could look at me wrong and I like can't stop crying. Like I like have like hyperventilating tears. I don't want to do anything. I have no motivation to go work out, which I love working out. I have no motivation to go to class, to get out of bed, to be around people. Like I almost like hate everyone, but then like it's like a deep like love hatred, because like I want them around, but then I don't. It's like pretty confusing, and it confuses me, but at the same time, like I have to like tackle that. I have to fight it. So what I do is I'll wake up 15 minutes earlier than I have to. I'll read my Bible. I'll like try to like have a really slow morning and just ground myself and let myself know that this is going to change. Whether it's good or bad, feelings change. Like whether you're happy or sad, your feelings are going to change. Like you're not going to be happy forever. You're not going to be sad forever. Like whatever you're struggling with, eventually it's going to go away. And that's always hopeful for me, because it's like, okay, I have a really hard week in front of me, but next week's going to be great. Next week I'm going to feel really good. Next week I'm going to be really productive, and genuinely just being kind to myself. Because when I was so mad at myself for feeling this way, and when I would punish myself and make myself go do a hard workout anyways, or make myself be in a room of friends, it would just make it worse. Like it would just make me like sit there and like disassociate and be like, the world is meaningless, like all this is awful. But when I gave myself space to like not feel perfect, like I was able to like have that week where I was like, okay, you know what? This is what it is. And next week is when we're going to be productive. Next week is when you're going to feel better and you're going to do better. Because at the same time, your body's telling you exactly what you need, whether or not you like it. Because obviously no one likes that you're kind of like letting like anxiety or depression like fuel you in that way. But at the same time, your body's crying out for help. Like my body would cry out for rest, and it's like, fine, take a nap. You know what? Like you're okay.
You mentioned there, that the world is hopeless, something to that effect. Now, I know it's easy for people in general, I'm not going to pigeonhole young people, to get caught up in the politics and the helplessness that is being portrayed in the world in certain countries that are in strife right now. What are your feelings around that? Not the politics, but the detachment from that story, or detachment from that news cycle that's actually perpetuating some of these beliefs amongst young people, that it is a hopeless time to be alive, or that the future isn't brighter than the present. Because it really is a perspective shift. For someone who's seen cell phones invented, like myself, there's never been a better time to be alive. And I feel that's true for you. I feel that's true for my 8-year-old daughter and my 3-year-old son and my child on the way. The world's never going to be a better place. How can we encourage young people to shift that paradigm in terms of seeing what's going on in the world and not letting it invade their belief that there's not a brighter future?
Yeah, so I would say ignorance is bliss, because I think what you don't know can't hurt you. But also, I do think it's like pretty important to be educated on at least a few things. So I'm not going to say like, just don't look at the news, because like that's like pretty...
right, it's naive.
Like just like,
and
yeah,
it
it's naive.
happen.
And yeah, exactly, especially with like social media and stuff. But I would challenge the idea that if you draw a circle and then you draw like a bigger circle, what you can control is in the little circle. So like these are the things you can focus on, like your friendships, your family, like your significant other if you have one, like your school, whatever. And then there's the bigger circle, and there's things you really can't control. And once you learn to set the boundary to only like invest and like pour all your time and like, I guess, anxiety in this sense, and the things you can control, you're going to be so much happier. You're going to feel so much better, because when you sit there and spiral about things like you cannot control, like, oh my gosh, a zombie apocalypse is coming. Like you're just going to sit there and waste so much time and energy and like completely make yourself freak out with something that like you can't control. Let's
talk about that, because you hit the nail on the head with the small circle and the large circle. people really are zoomed out into world politics and geopolitical decisions on the parts of presidents and invading other countries. And I'm like, since when did you become well-versed in any of that? But that will dedicate, or better yet, that will infiltrate an entire day, week, and then month of their attention because they're fixated on this subject. And as movie-like as this raid of, Venezuela was, I see it and I move on. Like it doesn't capture my attention for more than what it is. I've defined that as something beyond my
control,
sphere of influence.
Yeah.
And then we talked about keeping things small. So again, I want to kind of hammer home the juxtaposition of people are getting caught up in world politics when they are unable to get out of bed and be functional.
Right, yes.
Those two things are so far apart, but that is where we are lost. Again, bear with me as I form this long question. But I'm processing at the same time because I really do appreciate having a perspective of someone so bright and forthcoming and honest about the struggles they had. And you are far removed from my age group, so I get to see a lens into what some of your age group peers are struggling with. And I think one of the beauties of my job is I get to keep I think the thing that makes me good at my job is having an open mind because I can take in a perspective that doesn't necessarily, not one that I share or I'm familiar with. So what can we take, what can we do, what can we practice to make those wins small, like you said, the getting out of beds? And how can we start to give less weight to these things that we are completely unable to control? And have you ever had this struggle? Have you ever had to detach or, throw your phone to the side or give yourself a timeout from social to cure yourself, so to speak? And is that actually a remedy for some of these things that people are struggling with?
Yeah, so I have had to take breaks from social media. Obviously, my job doesn't really permit that as much as sometimes I would because sometimes I do totally get wrapped up in it, but I have timers on all my social media and okay. I'm only really allowed to use it for posting purposes. And I try to create my algorithm to only show me positive things,
Right.
So
which I encourage, yeah.
Yes.
Get rid of go through your follows and literally delete all the garbage and stop giving it attention. And guess
yes.
what? How crazy is that the algorithm is like our brain? Mm-hmm. It works the same way. More of what you feed it is the direction that it will take you in. So what are some of the pages that young people can resonate with? Who are some of the players? Obviously, you're aiming to be one of those people that they can look to for guidance and inspiration and blueprints on how to overcome this. Who are some of the people that you've admired or been mentored by directly and indirectly, both in the real world and in the social media space?
Okay, so social media space is Bryce Crawford. I don't know if you've heard of Bryce Crawford.
No, they're not. They haven't made my feet.
Okay, well,
they will now.
He is
because they're listening.
Yes, they are listening. He is probably the biggest Gen Z spiritual person. He's a Christian and he talks a lot about his faith, but his whole thing is that he was planning on taking his life one night and he went to a Waffle House. And he ended up meeting this guy, had this encounter, blah, blah, blah. If you're interested, go listen to Bryce. He's cool. But then he got in the car and he was like, God, fine. I won't do it. But he didn't want his life. So he gave it to God. He was like, all right, here, take it. Take my anxiety away and I'll stay. And then God took his anxiety away and he turned into this huge, he just got married and everyone's posting on social media, the royal wedding, he's huge. This huge Gen Z voice for faith and hope. Right. So I really like Bryce. I really like his message. I think it's extremely important to have faith and to know that things can get better and that you can ask for certain things to get taken away. But I also think it's important to know that sometimes you have to carry a certain cross and it won't get taken away, or sometimes like Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians, you have a thorn in your side that God's not going to take it away because it keeps you humble. So just because God doesn't take something away from you, don't get discouraged. But he did for Bryce. So that was really cool to be able to watch Bryce's journey and see how he's tried helping other people turn to God with their faith and stuff. So I've looked up to him a lot in the social media sense. And then most of my other people I look up to are in the real world, because I try my best not to really fixate on people on social media. I try to really turn to the people around me. So my dad, obviously, he is a very motivational person, and he just ran an Ironman this year.
Nice.
And he proved to me through that you can honestly just do anything you set your mind to. So I've always really listened to him. It's been really encouraging not to really have to find that motivation elsewhere, because it just kind of lived in my home with me. And then obviously I really like Mel Robbins. The Let Them theory, that's a really good book, and that's been very helpful to me.
Mel's great in this space, and I've loved kind of seeing her on my feed and get more prevalent on the feed. She always has some great feedback and some great guests. And, you just gave me a gem, which is that thorn or perceived thorn that I have in my side is actually there to humble me. And if I'm getting real and honest, at times I've even viewed my family or my marriage as a thorn in my side, but it is there to humble me. So thank you for
You're
that,
welcome.
because it truly is just a matter of perspective. And I've been able to shift my perspective around that topic already, but it just hit home because, we hear things or we see things that resonate, and that definitely did. So I want you to, well, first I want to thank you for coming out and dropping your wisdom on me, but also to tell our audience more about Sanity in the Storm, what they can learn, and where they can find that book so they can go out and support you.
Yes, so Sanity in the Storm was made for anyone who is struggling or knows someone that is struggling. I know that a lot of the audience today is probably going to be more parents of kids or know someone that's younger, but I promise you that this book is something that will not only help you understand your children better and understand the kids my age better, but will also help you understand yourself better, because at some point you were also a teenager, you were also a young adult. And I know everyone has their struggles, their trials, their tribulations. And I really try to hit on the big ones throughout the book. So one of the really big ones we hit on is grief. I've experienced grief a lot in my life, especially at a younger age. And I think grief is something that no one really knows how to deal with, right or wrong. So having coping mechanisms is perfect. And then we also talk about anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, try to really just touch on all of it. Remember, vulnerability is your strength. So you're going to be reading my diary pretty much at the beginning of each chapter. I really tell you how I resonate with what I'm going to be talking about. But you can find my book and my podcast and everything on my website. It is www.sanityinthestorm.com. My book is also on Amazon. So
Awesome. And how old are you again, Andelina?
I'm 20.
Andelina is 20 years old. I want you all to go and pick up this book and support this young, dynamic young lady who is using her life to impact the of others. And I just want to commend you and give you your kudos and your flowers, because I truly do think that all of us have the ability to be the light for others, and you are that for your peer group, and hopefully expanding. And however we can help you do that, it's been my honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I want to thank you all for tuning in, as always, to another episode of the Real Mentors podcast. We're going to have Andelina's book link and everything else about her in the bio. Make sure you continue to support our show, subscribe, like, share, and comment, which will help us grow the channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, let's get it.